Look what you did. We've accomplished so much in the past year because you stood on the wall with me. We've had incredible episodes of Hebrew Voices and the support team study. And I actually looked at this now that we're coming to the end of 2017, and I just couldn't even believe it. I looked at the list of things that we've put out, and I thought, is this from this year? Or is this from the last 5 years? And I realized if I've forgotten how much we put out this year, I wanted to remind you guys so you have the opportunity to go back and look at some of these teachings, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Amen. We're here at McCour Hebrew Foundation Global Headquarters in San Antonio, Texas.
At Deb's house.
At my house. And we literally were floored when we realized what's gone out.
Yeah.
And it would never have happened without you. Without your prayers, without your financial support, without calling us, encouraging us. We get so much encouragement from folks just in emails and phone calls. And so none of this would have been possible.
Well, and I got to say, I've been spending pretty much every waking moment working on this whole research project of God's holy name that's resulted in the discovery of, as of today, 752 Bible manuscripts with the full vowels.
Woo!
And now we have 16 rabbis who say explicitly the name is Yehovah. And I look back and I'm like, wait, how did I do that and this? There's no way I did this without your help and the help of Yehovah, the creator of the universe. I just, no human being has that much energy. I want to go over some of the things so that you understand what we did and have the opportunity to go back and listen to these things that are in the archives, watch some of the videos. So we started the year with a UN emergency update. And I have to say how moved I am. I was in tears when I heard President Trump proclaim that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. And that was actually less than 1 year ago today that we had this evil attack on us by the United Nations, orchestrated by the Obama administration. And we talked about that in an episode called UN Emergency Update. And you should go back and look at that and realize how amazing our Creator is that we could go from that less than a year ago to this historic event where now, for the first time in 70 years, Jerusalem is recognized by the greatest superpower in the world, America, as Israel's capital.
These are such exciting times. And about this Hebrew...
Yeah, I mean, I want you to hear some of the reactions.
Right. We have some quotes from the Hebrew Voices. Cecile wrote, "Amen. What a message. You are the true ambassador to the nations on the globe from Israel to remind all the specific establishment on the rock of the God of Israel,
Amen.
His covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel. That land belongs to God.
It is His land. It's nobody else's."
Woo!
Wow. Another episode we did was Yeshua, the Jewish settler. And just looking at the sources, it talks about how he came with his family. Joseph came with his wife, and Yeshua, according to the New Testament, was born in Bethlehem. And what was he doing there? He was a Jewish settler. He was part of this settlement, a Jewish settlement in the Galilee after it had been conquered by the Hasmoneans in a slightly earlier period. And Yeshua really, in that respect, would have been considered a war criminal by the United Nations decree that was orchestrated by the Obama administration with their help. And it really put those things in perspective. We did an episode on Ivanka and the religious police, where we were looking at some of the things that were coming out of the Jewish world regarding Ivanka Trump, the daughter of the president, and her being an Orthodox Jew. And it was a great opportunity to talk about how we have this problem in Judaism, which I call the religious police. And we've got to stand up to those police and not let them control us. And so listen to that episode, great episode. And then one of the ones that, guys, this is the type of thing that you hope once in your lifetime you have the opportunity to do something like this. And I had an opportunity to do 2 episodes of it. It was on this Hebrew manuscript of the Book of Revelation, Sloan 273, that came online from the British Library. I'd read about this years ago, and now it was finally available. And those who have heard about T-Bone got a rare opportunity to actually listen to T-Bone's voice as he's discussing this together with me and A.J. Bernard, who's a Methodist pastor who keeps Torah. And it was really, honestly, for most scholars, if you have the opportunity to do one of these in your lifetime, you're blessed. And I got to do 2 and other things.
Now, Nehemiah translated those 2 chapters, and they're
It's
online.
about a chapter and a half of the book of Revelation in Hebrew.
When you
yeah.
go there, he's got the English and the Hebrew, so you can see it for yourself.
Right, and I've had people say to me, you discovered this Hebrew manuscript. When will you translate? It's on there. It's on the website.
It's there. Go look.
What does it cost? Nothing.
Nothing. It's there.
We did it.
But it wouldn't be there if you hadn't helped us.
Right. We were able to do this because
Yes.
you stood with us on the wall and you
You did
supported
it.
this ministry and enabled
did.
me to be able to do this.
And we've got a great quote.
Yeah.
Somebody who heard
Let's hear it.
the part 1 and part 2.
And this is what touches me, that I'm able to do this and I'm able to hear people's
Yes.
responses and realize, okay, I've been called to do this by Yehovah and people are being blessed by it. That to me is the greatest blessing.
We need the encouragement. Jeff wrote, Nehemiah, this was one of your best to date.
Amen.
Wow. I have been intrigued by the Hebrew Matthew manuscripts, but this is a step or more beyond any of that.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
Another episode we did was a July 4th special with a professor at Tel Aviv University of Political Science, Michael Kochin, Jewish Freedom in America. And we looked at aspects of the American history and the Jewish people and how they're intimately intertwined.
Yes.
We're not some foreign element in this society, but we were integral to gaining freedom of religion for everyone in America, a freedom that now is in danger, people, and you need to make sure it doesn't get taken away. If you're passive and do nothing, you might lose that freedom that the Jewish people helped you attain in the establishment of the United States.
We have a quote from that.
Yeah.
Linda wrote, this is one of the best audios, they're all excellent, from Nehemiah about our American and Jewish history. Certainly digs deep into our roots.
We did another episode, Deb, apartheid in Palestinian Jordan, and I interviewed one of the leaders who is part of the opposition against the king of Jordan, asking for there to be freedom. And we found out that Jordan is actually an apartheid state. This is the claim that Israel's an apartheid state. Quite the contrary. Jordan de facto is an apartheid state where a large percent of the population are treated as second-class citizens. And for me to be able to speak to one of the leaders of the Jordanian Palestinian people was really like, what a rare opportunity, what a blessing. We had another episode we did together, it was video, called The Name and New Discoveries, and we shared some things that, I mean, wow. Some of these things I've been waiting for 16 years for that information. Go to Israel over the summer, have no expectation that I'll find out those things. I didn't even know really what question to ask in some of these issues, and we get the answers.
And there were miracles.
I mean, really, it was
It
miracles.
was like
I walk by and there's
closed doors open.
I walk by and the doors open a crack and I stick my head in it. I get an hour and a half lecture from one of the top experts in the world.
That was amazing.
Amazing stuff.
So we've got a comment from that. Peggy wrote, phenomenal Nehemiah. Probably the best discussion on his name that I've heard yet.
Another episode we did, and this was actually something where I was invited to speak at a Yom HaAtzmaut, in Israeli Independence Day celebration in West Virginia. I spoke alongside the former ambassador of Israel to the United States and Batman. Literally, is a guy who's a Batman. I don't know you could say a Batman impersonator. I think he's Batman.
Yeah, because he's not the real Batman.
Well, I mean, he is. He came in a Batmobile. And anyway, I shared there about and again, there's this intimate intertwining connection between the rebirth of Israel and the rediscovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I share about that in that talk. And that's now gone global around the world. You can listen to it on YouTube.
That brought me to tears.
I mean, I was in this little town in West Virginia, and now the whole world is hearing this message.
It was really moving. CJ wrote, Nehemiah, listening to your heartfelt speech regarding the 69th anniversary of Israel, Zionism, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and your grandfather, amazing. Wow. Holy wow. We want to thank you for all you do to help reinstitute Abba Yah's ancient path.
Amen. And guys, we wouldn't be able to do this without your help.
Absolutely. We have to have it. And look what, we've got more. We've got more. Let's keep going.
So we did a study that is called The Disastrous Misunderstanding of the Name of God. And, the guys, this is the whole Hovah thing. You'll hear it's, Hovah means, hail destruction. No, only in made-up Facebook Hebrew, guys. Go check it out. Disastrous Misunderstanding of the Name of God. We put this out as, it's more of a technical written study, but it's really some foundational things of understanding the Hebrew language.
We have somebody that fessed up.
Come on, what does she say?
Suzette wrote, forgive me. I was one of those who knew just enough Hebrew to be dangerous. I'm continuing to study and praise Yah. Thanks for the article.
Yeah, you're not alone, Suzette, but we appreciate that
Yes.
somebody can read this and study this material
And learn.
and say, okay, wow, I've learned something new.
Exactly.
Now, we had this horrible incident that happened here in the United States, and it was this just disgusting, vicious, evil mass shooting in Las Vegas. And then the response was, in some ways, evil as well, and that people were saying, well, we better take away everybody's guns. And right here in Texas, not too far from where we are, there was another shooting, and a man came out with an AR-15 and he stopped the shooter from causing more havoc and destruction. And before that actually happened, before the second incident, I decided I've been planning for a long time to do an episode that shows really a genetic link between gun control and genocide. And some people have said, oh, well, you just bring up Hitler every time they call that reductio ad Hitlerum. That is, if you want to make your argument strong, you just say that's like Hitler. That's not what this is at all. We're actually showing a genetic link between American gun control, the Federal Gun Control Act in 1968, and the Weimar Republic Gun Control Act from the 1920s. And what's so powerful about that is that when the act was passed in Weimar, Germany, it was one of the most liberal countries in the world. People had complete freedom, virtually complete freedom. And they said, well, why wouldn't we just tell the government what we have? What's the big deal? And then Hitler came along 5 years later, and he used that to take away people's guns and then kill them. And most, of course, primarily the Jews, but other people were murdered as well. 6 million Jews and 5 million non-Jews were exterminated by Hitler, and the basis for that was confiscating their weapons. And so we did an episode called Jews for Guns, because a lot of people out there who are against guns, who want to confiscate people's guns and leave them helpless, are Jewish liberals, which I can't understand with our history, how you can want to confiscate people's ability to protect themselves.
Reyes gave us
Hey, Reyes, shalom. Thank you for your support, Reyes.
He is a great friend of the ministry. He really is. Reyes wrote, such a powerful message for our times and a reflection of our past.
Wow. I did one of the interviews, the top programs, honestly, in my life. Like one of the pinnacle points in my life so far has been interviewing Deputy Minister Michael Oren, who wrote the book that is one of my favorite books I've ever read. It's called 6 Days of War. It's the definitive book on the 6-Day War. And now he's not only the greatest historian alive to have written on Israel, but he's also a member of the government of Israel in Prime Minister Netanyahu's office. And I got to sit with him at the Knesset and interview him about this. And really, I mean, wow, I am so blessed. And the response of people has been really a blessing too.
Margaret responded. Margaret wrote, so good, Nehemiah, thanks. Full of revelation, missing facts, and a better understanding of history and the current situation. Listening again and likely again.
I mean, I just can't even believe we did all of this year. My mind is still blown.
Thank you.
We did an episode called Heroes of 9/11, and I got to speak with a man who I had listened to an interview he gave back years ago, and I shared that information in my book, Shattering the Conspiracy of Silence, talking about what happened to him on 9/11, how he ran into the Strong Tower. And this was something that changed my life. Hearing his testimony changed my life. And then I finally got to meet him, and not only meet this first responder from 9/11, but go with him to the place where he saved lives and hear his testimony firsthand and then share it with you. And I could not have done that. I couldn't be on a plane to New York and spend a day in Manhattan without your support for this ministry.
And Reg wrote, and please listen to these and send us feedback right on the wall. Reg wrote, I almost felt as if I was walking on holy ground as I listened to this hero tell his story of what happened on 9/11. It made the tragedy of that day more personal and somehow more real. Thank you. And I couldn't agree more. That was a perspective that really moved me that I'd not gotten before. It was wonderful.
And I think that's so important for the generation that lived through 9/11, but even more so for the generation, my nephews and nieces, who when we talk about 9/11, it's like when in my generation they talked about Pearl Harbor. It's like, oh yeah, Grandpa, come on. But this is something that it changed the world, and we're still living with the consequences today. Guys, if you want to hear these studies, go to my website, nehemiahswall.com. That's nehemiahswall.com. Go to your favorite podcast app and subscribe to my podcast, Nehemiah's Wall Podcast. You get it automatically downloaded to your phone. You can just listen easily every week. And I can't list all the new episodes we put out this year. We'll be here all day. But so go to the website, please, and subscribe to it. And also make sure, please subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get a free email every week in your inbox just by clicking on newsletter at the top of nehemiahswall.com. Put in your email, and that way you can stay up to date with what the ministry is doing, both with the Hebrew Voices, with videos we're doing, with live teachings where I go places. Guys, I got to say, one of my favorite parts in ministry is when people invite me to come speak, and I get to meet all of you in person. This year I got to speak at 13 different communities, and it touches my soul when I meet others who are as hungry as I am for the truth. And I get people say to me, you're going to speak to that group. It's 50 people, 100 people. You put out a podcast and 50,000 people listen to it. But there's something about meeting you in person that just moves my heart and it really encourages me in ministry. So if you do have a congregation out there, you want to get me there in front of you, contact Deb, and we'll see if we can set it up and fit it into the schedule.
Yeah, we're working on schedule for 2018 now, so.
Absolutely. All right, we talked about all these Hebrew Voices. Now I want to talk about some of the support team studies. That's for people who support my ministry. It's kind of a little extra thank you. If you supported my ministry, I want to give you this thank you, which is some of the kind of the cutting edge things that I'm working on. One of the things I worked on, and it was only 2 episodes, but it's something I spent nearly a year working on, and parts of it, in a way, I spent decades working on. And this is a support team study, which really, and again, it's one of those things, if you do one of these in your entire life as a scholar, you're blessed and you're grateful. And I got to do a whole bunch of them. 10 rabbis speak out on the name of God is a 2-part episode I've done. We're actually working on part 3, guys, which we might call something else, but it really is the follow-up to that. So in this 2-part support team study, 10 rabbis speak out in the name of God. I mean, this really, Deb, is something I've been waiting for decades. And it really was incredible for me as I'm reading what these rabbis are writing over the last 1,000 years. And one of these rabbis sounds like he's quoting my book, Shattering the Conspiracy of Silence, except he wrote it 120 years before I did. I had no idea that this information was out there, because what I was told is, well, the Jews don't know what God's holy name is. They don't know how to pronounce it. And I just accepted that as fact, never really questioned it. And then I go and I just look. And within 30 seconds, I find a rabbi who says the name is, are you ready? Yehovah. And he says it straight out. He gives us the name of the vowel, Shvach Olam Kamatz. And this is, we've been told the Jews don't know. And because the Jews don't know, we need to plumb the depths of every pagan and heathen source out there, whether it's Gnostics who believe the God who created the physical universe is an evil demon named Yahweh, all the way to Greek magical papyri who are uttering all kinds of nonsensical forms of the name. One of those is Yahweh, but every possible combination you can imagine, because they're expressing these magical incantations, and that's supposed to be the basis of our knowing how to pronounce God's name, and all of that because we're told the Jews don't know the name. And I go and I look, and I find there's 16 rabbis who at least they believe they know what the name is and how it was pronounced and will be pronounced in the end time. And I shared that really, guys, as a thank you to those who have supported this ministry and made this study possible.
Really, without your help, and this is so in-depth, and like he said, worked on it probably more than almost anything else.
Oh, boy.
but it wouldn't have been possible to even do that.
Well, just to give you an idea, I mean, the other night I was in bed at 11 p.m., and I've got to the point where I'd exhausted a certain body of manuscripts, and that's how we got to 750 at the time a couple days ago. And I'm clicking around the bed saying, I wonder if I can find any more manuscripts. And I find number 751, a manuscript I didn't even know existed 2 days ago.
And that was just amazing.
And me going to bed at 11 p.m. at night, that's an early night for me. I mean, this is just, I'm just, as my friend Keith said, when you're doing this, Nehemiah, you're arrested by the Spirit. I don't, that's a terminology that's not part of my tradition, but I really just can't stop it. And I shared this earlier. I said, why would I ever stop? And I got to tell you, Deb, now months later, I'm so glad I didn't stop.
We are too. And listen, Greg sent some thoughts on this.
Yeah.
The stories of these various rabbis some hiding things, some in letters, some in books. How amazing just this one portion of the great tapestry Jehovah is weaving can be. I can really relate with that.
She always wants to talk about knitting, so
And
there
crochet.
we go.
And then to see them weave a connection to your very own life. Nehemiah, it's incredible. I'll never forget, as long as I live, the day you called me, when you found your 11th.
My 11th great-grandfather is a rabbi who literally wrote, "Hide this letter in a pure and holy place." And he goes on to say, "Lest the unworthy read it and use this information." It's the WikiLeaks of the Jewish Middle Ages.
It is.
One rabbi writing to another, talking about how the name is Yehovah, and we better not let this letter get out, because then the people will know how to pronounce it. And we have that today.
Thanks to you.
And thanks to you. And it turns out he's my 11th great-grandfather,
Yes.
who's literally part of the conspiracy of silence to suppress people knowing. He knew what it was, but didn't want the masses to know what God's holy name was. We did another episode called Jaw-Dropping Revelations from Israel, and this is really the culmination of me sharing what happened when I went to Israel just for 1 month over the summer. And I kept T-Bone locked in the basement for 2 weeks. So, I mean, just about. And I think I let him leave the basement 3 times, and 2 of those days were Shabbat. And we just incredible things happened. And then the 2 weeks after that, I then went to this Bible conference, learned so much, incredible things. I mean, really, it was an incredible experience, guys. And I couldn't do this without your help.
Not at all. So Christy sent her thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Amen. I have prayed and prayed to know the name of the Father and for him to show me great and unsearchable things. Jeremiah 33:3. Lo and behold, he sent me to Nehemiah's teachings.
And look,
wow.
This was for me an answer to prayer, and I'm just sharing with what I received from Yehovah and the information that he's allowed me to discover.
There wouldn't be any teachings at all without you.
I mean, I really am encouraged when I'm working on these things, and I realize there really are people standing with me on the wall, people from all over the world. You were just telling me the other day how somebody called up from Peru.
Yes, a young man. He called from Peru. He's a Christian young man. And he said in his group, they use the name Yehovah.
Hallelujah.
They have taken your studies. They've gone through them.
Wow.
They've searched them for themselves.
Amazing.
And they use the name Yehovah.
Wow.
Wow. I was almost brought to tears.
I mean, I meet people on I've been to 4 continents, and now you're telling me about a 5th, and we hear from Australia the 6th, and we even hear from the 7th. There are people in Antarctica who are proclaiming Yehovah's name.
Your books are in a library in Antarctica
They
on
sure
a
are.
military base.
Right, it's on some kind of research station or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So all 7 continents, is it 7? All the continents on Earth plus Atlantis. No, well, I made that part up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to
They
talk
haven't
about
found it
another.
yet.
Right. Pesher and the Dead Sea Scrolls is another episode that I did. And again, this is one of these things that you hope you could do one of these in your lifetime. And I'm actually looking at this, like thinking, did we really do this many this year? And I got to find 752 Bible manuscripts with the full vowels of Jehovah's holy name. This is amazing.
It
It's
is
just
amazing. Cindy sent her thoughts on this. We love all of your teachings, Nehemiah, but this is one of the best regarding interpretations that we've ever heard. We appreciate your desire to share truth and perspectives without doctrines. May Jehovah bless you always.
And this is what I've been called to do: is share the information that I've received without me telling you, okay, now whatever your faith is, you need to change it and have my faith. That's not my goal. No. That's not my calling. My calling is to share the information as I've received it. I'll certainly give you my perspective, but I'm not trying to tear down people's faith or change their faith. I want to strengthen your faith in the creator of the universe based on the ancient Hebrew sources. That's what my ministry, Makor Hebrew Foundation, is. We were setting up this 501c3, and they said, what is it? What are you doing? And I said, well, it's about the Hebrew sources. And it came to me, that's what we should call it, Makor, the Hebrew sources. People call it Makor. It's Makor. It's the word in Jeremiah chapter 2, where he says, they've left me the source of the living water and chosen for themselves hewn cisterns that are broken. And then we hear about this, of all places, Martin Luther, who later became a vicious anti-Semite, but in his earlier days, when he had an affinity for Hebrew and the Jewish people, he talks about how Hebrew is the source, Greek is the river that flows from the source, and Latin is the downstream puddle. And I back translated that in my head into Hebrew. So he's saying Hebrew is the Makor. We have this in the Bible that Hebrew is Makor. Yehovah is the core who spoke to the people in Hebrew. Now,
Yehovah
guys,
is the source of living water.
he sure is.
He is.
Guys, if you're thinking of giving a tax-deductible donation before the end of the year, please consider giving it to my ministry, Makor Hebrew Foundation, so I can continue to bring you these kinds of studies, so I can go to Israel next year and travel around the world and share this information with people.
We can only find more if you help us.
And guys, I mean, if you would have asked me, and we had a meeting, we sat down here in San Antonio, Texas last year, and we went through what are we going to be doing next year in ministry? And a lot of those things we were able to accomplish. Other things were not even on the agenda. I had no idea where some of these things would lead, and that makes me really excited. What is 2018 going to bring? What are the discoveries and the channels and the directions that Yehovah is going to lead us and allow us to open up these doors that, I didn't even know were closed. I didn't know the door existed, and the door opened and I walked through and learned things. I'm just so excited about what's in store and what's coming next year.
You actually have things waiting in the wings that you didn't get to because we didn't see any of this coming.
Well, so one study that's coming out in this period now is going to be a study called The Mistake That Got It Right. We have a part 1 and a part 2. And we have other studies coming out next year. Here's some that I don't even think we're going to have time to get to. We got to talk about this. I did an episode that really, it again moved me to tears.
Me too.
It was Yehovah and Hurricane Irma. There was these discussions on the news how these hurricane Irma was going to come through and just devastate and cause all this destruction.
Yes.
And then we hear from these people who, when they were boarding up their walls and their windows and their doors, they wrote independently, 3 different people wrote Yehovah's name on their houses, on their boards, and their houses were spared.
Yes.
And I heard this and I said, I need to speak to these people. They sent me photos and they posted photos on Facebook, and I said, people are talking in the news about all kinds of things. This is the news that the world needs to hear. And I called them up and it was incredible. I mean, I was just so moved by these testimonies. And what really moved me about this is I'm sitting minding my own business in some little windowless office 16 years ago, doing this search and this study, and I discover something, and then now it's a snowball.
It's huge.
Where now it's going forth through the world, things that have really, in a sense, nothing to do with me, because Yehovah wanted his name to be known throughout the world.
Amen.
And now it's being proclaimed even as people are boarding up their houses in a hurricane. I mean, it's incredible. It blows my mind.
It is.
Guys, we did an episode called Here We Are by this man who's a musician in Israel, and he's a cantor in Jerusalem, and he shares his testimony about his grandmother surviving the Holocaust. And the song Here We Are is about they tried to wipe us out, but Yehovah wouldn't let them. They're still here. We did an episode about remembering our soldiers, and this I shared a testimony from my nephew. Some incredible thing. I mean, the boys who are standing, the boys and girls who are standing out there defending us from the enemies of Yehovah who want to destroy his people, and those who love his name in countries all over the world, they're our most precious people. Those young boys and girls who are doing this. We did an episode called How to Keep Shabbat in Hebrew Voices. How long were the Israelites in Egypt? We did Why Would I Ever Stop? Guys, go listen to this. We did an episode about how do I convert to Judaism, which isn't exactly what you think it is, but go listen to that on Hebrew Voices. NehemiahsWall.com. You can find all of this.
Thank you so much for helping us. I hope you're blown away too by everything we've just gone through. I hope you'll go to NehemiahsWall.com and please be a part of this. Please help us, to do even more in 2018, because none of this is possible without your help. And we want to keep going. We want to find more and more that we don't even know exist. We learned that lesson this year, so now we're hooked.
Boy, yeah. Does Yehovah make you humble? You think, I've got, as Keith jokes around, a master's degree from Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And then I open up these manuscripts that no one's ever looked at, and it doesn't matter if you have a doctorate. If you haven't looked at it, you don't know what's there in the oracles of God, in God's holy word. And now for the first time, only because of Yehovah's grace, do I have the opportunity to the means. Guys, this wasn't about what we did this year.
No.
This is about what you did standing with us on the wall. in order to empower people with information to uncover the ancient Hebrew sources of their faith.
Email me, call me.
Yeah.
I can help you
That's
understand.
800-420-8206. You'll get her.
And we'll get there's a little sign at the bottom here.
We're going to put a little sign at the bottom. Sometimes you might get her cooking dinner for her husband who's standing behind the camera, but you'll get the ministry headquarters. Would you end with a prayer, Deb?
Yehovah, thank you so much that we understood and learned the lesson of having people stand on the wall with us. How important it was to Nehemiah back in the day. And it's even more important to us today because you're doing something in the earth. And we see it and we appreciate it. And we thank you for letting us be a little part of it. We thank you for all the people who help us to uncover the amazing things in your Torah. Thank you, Yehovah.
Amen.
Amen.
You have been listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemiah Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemiah's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiahswall.com.